Shabbat Shalom. In particular, in these challenging times, we turn to our Torah reading, our weekly Parsha for words of inspiration, and it's fortuitous that our Parsha speaks about our connection to the land of Israel. And I want to share two ideas, two very brief, straightforward, I hope, ideas, connecting to this concept of us and the land of Israel, the Jewish people and the land of Israel. First is that Abraham asks God, how am I going to know? Give me a sign that I will inherit this land, that this land will be mine. And the commentators note that this phrasing is very unusual, that I will inherit the land. Why doesn't Abraham say, how will I know that you will give me this land, that I will have this land, that this land will be mine? Why does he say that I will inherit this land? The Mei Marom, Rav Charlap, offers a beautiful interpretation. He says, you know the difference between an inheritance and any other type of gift or acquisition? That when it comes to an acquisition, that if I purchase something, the object that I have no longer has a connection to the person or from where it came from. It's now in a new possession, and therefore it's entirely mine. I don't look at that object and say, oh, there's a piece of the person who I bought it from that's there. Rather, there's an entirely new reality. But when it comes to an inheritance, the original identity of the person who gave it, of the one who gave it, remains within the object. When a person inherits an object of value, of whether it's monetary value or sentimental value from a previous generation, that generation's imprint, the generation that gave it, remains in the object. The Mei Marom says that this is true with the land of Israel as well. God gave it to us as an inheritance, which means that our relationship to it is not a new relationship that's identified by how we use it and how we relate to it, absent of any history, but rather the identity of where it came from, God's identity, stays imbued within the land. It's a beautiful concept, a beautiful mission for how we relate to the land of Israel. It's a land that certainly we connect to. It's our land, but at the same time, it's God's land. And we always try to see the presence of God when we are in the land of Israel. God tells Abraham, gives him the sign, and tells him one of the signs is that your offspring will be many. And as the verse says, Vayotzei ota hachutza, that God brought Abraham outside. Vayomer habetna hashamayma, he says to him, look up to the heavens. Usfor hakochavim, and count the stars. Im tuchal lispor otam, if you can count them. Vayomer lo ko yezarecha, and God continues and says, thus will your offspring be. And many have asked the same question, which is that this promise hasn't come true. Thus will your offspring be? No, not at all. Our offspring, the Jewish people, have never been like the stars of the sky, have never been so numerous that you can't count them. We know exactly how many there are, more or less. Rav Meir Shapiro of Lublin offered a beautiful insight. And he said, no, the promise is not that we're going to be as many as the stars of the sky, but rather put ourselves in Abraham's place. So we're standing there outside. God has brought us outside, and we're looking up at the beautiful clear sky. It's filled with stars. And God says, look up, count the stars. What should Abraham have done in that moment? He should have said, God, thanks, but no thanks. That's an impossible task. Count the stars? It's impossible to count them. But instead, you know what Abraham did? Looked up at the sky and said, 1, 2, 3, 4. Meaning, even when faced with a task of impossibility, he still set out to do it. And the promise? Ko yezarecha, so will your offspring be. Even when it seems that the task is impossible, we still take it on. And that's part of the secret of our existence. Right now, we are faced with something that seems impossible. Israel surrounded by hatred. And I don't only mean the state of Israel, because that's true. but I also mean the people of Israel. I also mean the Jewish people. I also mean anyone in this world who loves peace and can see things clearly. And what we've seen in these last few weeks is the most horrific examples of how humans mistreat other humans. Hamas terrorism, which is not just terrorism, but it's every evil that one can imagine. It's horrible murder. It's sexual assault. It's horrible crimes against human beings. It's kidnapping. It's elder abuse. It's child abuse. Everything that we fight against in society. Everything that we stand for in society of preventing. It happened. It happened. Hamas terrorists visited this on Israel. And what we would expect to see is looking around the world and seeing, look, everyone is speaking out against this, and yet there's silence from so many quarters, or there's moral equivalency, or there's debating, is there virtue, is there not virtue, is it justified, it's horrible. And faced with this moral loneliness, a response would be to shut it down. A response would be to say, it's too difficult. But that's not the way of the Jewish people. That's not the way of the descendants of Abraham, who were brought outside and said, count the stars, do something impossible. And see, you know what we do, which seems impossible? We fight hatred with love. We fight immorality with morality. We fight these terrorists who respect no rules. And we respect rules because we respect life. I saw a clip of a speech that the late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks delivered in the past number of years, and how he said, very prescient, very, very, almost as a prophet, he said, you know, the land of Israel, the people of Israel, regardless of who they are, where they come from, of where they are on the religious spectrum or the political spectrum, it's a nation of people engaged in valuing life. Whether it's with technological advances or medical advances or the Israel Defense Force, the ambition, the mission is to preserve life. In a world that we've seen celebrates death and brutality, that's nothing less than a miracle. To be a people that values life. That's standing outside, looking up at the stars and counting them. Because if we do the math, it's impossible. It'll take forever. And yet we set out. We set out to achieve the impossible task. Israel will succeed. It'll succeed because of a deep faith in God, deep faith in humanity still, and because Israel has no other choice, and we have no other choice. And we'll continue to advocate, and we'll continue to try to shine light into the dark corners of the world, which it seems are edging in closer and closer to us each and every day. And it's our prayer that in the merit of our ancestors, and in the merit of our Torah study, and in the merit of all of the good that's happening in Israel right now, and that's happening in our community, may we soon see the values of preserving life spread throughout the world and ultimately achieve a lasting security and a lasting peace. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.